Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at how universities are using social media. We're focusing specifically on Facebook, actually. It's gone way beyond just sharing nice campus photos. There seems to be a real science emerging now, using data analysis to figure out what actually makes posts engaging.
That's exactly right. And for this deep dive, we're digging into a PhD thesis that really explores these social media strategies in higher education.
Okay.
We're talking about moving past just like counting likes. It's about understanding the why behind that engagement.
Right, getting deeper. And the researcher here covered a lot of ground, didn't they? I mean, looking at traditional university marketing, predictive analytics, all that social media data.
Yeah, and even machine learning's role. Plus, they brought in ideas from graphic design, photography, what makes an image work visually.
And they used Google's Cloud Vision API too, I saw.
Correct. So pretty comprehensive.
So our mission today, really, is to pull out the most important stuff from all this research for you, the learner. If you want to properly understand how universities can get better at Facebook, this is for you. And we're aiming for data-backed insights, not just, gut feelings.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First off, why is this social media engagement thing so critical for universities anyway?
Well, it really comes down to a big shift in marketing over the last, say, decade or so. It's moved away from just broadcasting a brand message.
Yeah, the old megaphone approach.
Exactly. Towards actually engaging with people personally. And platforms like Facebook are, well, they're absolutely key tools for universities now.
For reaching who? Prospective students, alumni.
All of them, really. Potential students, current ones, alumni, the whole community. It's about distributing information, sure, but also building real connections.
And it's not enough just to be on Facebook, right? You need people to actually interact.
Precisely. You need those likes, the shares, the comments. That's the digital nod that shows you're connecting.
And the research backs this up, this link between interaction and performance.
Oh, absolutely. The thesis highlights a very clear link between how interactively a university uses social media and how well their posts actually do.
Okay.
And this is where predictive analytics on social media data comes in. It's just a much more adaptive way to approach things compared to older marketing methods, much more responsive.
So the thesis wanted to really nail down the specifics here. What were the main questions they were trying to answer?
Basically, two core questions. First, can we actually use machine learning techniques teaching computers to spot patterns to predict how much engagement a university's Facebook image will get?
Focusing on the image itself.
Yes. And second, are there specific visual features within those images that have a significant impact, that influence whether people like, share, or comment?
Okay, that makes sense. So how did they go about tackling those questions? What was the basic approach?
Well, they collected a whole load of Facebook post images. We're talking about 24 high-ranking universities in Australia, the UK, and the US.
Right, 3 key regions.
Exactly. Then they used this machine learning software called Weka. It's open source, quite powerful.
And within that?
They employed 4 different machine learning models or classifiers. Think of them as different ways of slicing the data. They use random forest, SMO, naive Bayes, and J48 standard, well-regarded methods for this kind of task.
Got it. Different analytical angles.
And they analyzed these images based on, get this, 48 different features.
Wow, 48. How did they even identify that many features?
A lot of it came from using the Google Cloud Vision API. It can automatically do things like recognize objects in the photo, detect faces, even gauge the emotions being shown.
Like happy, sad, surprised.
Exactly. But they also layered in principles from graphic design and photography, things like composition, lighting, use of color. So a real mix of automated analysis and design theory.
That sounds incredibly thorough.
Yeah.
So what did the machine learning models actually find? Could they predict engagement accurately?
Yeah, this is where it gets quite impressive. Some of the models were remarkably good at it. Random forest, for instance. In some tests, it hit almost 99.6% accuracy.
Nearly 100%. That's huge.
It is. Even when they used less data to train it, what they call different data splits, it was still up around 96.7%. The SMO model is also very accurate, hitting about 99.3% in some runs.
Okay, so random forest and SMO were the stars.
Pretty much. Naive Bayes wasn't bad either, around 94.3% accurate in some cases. J48 was a bit lower, but still useful.
So these models could reliably sort posts into high, medium, or low engagement categories based on likes, shares, comments, relative to follower numbers.
That's the gist of it, yes. They proved the concept. Machine learning can predict engagement based on image features with pretty high confidence.
But predicting is one thing. Did they figure out which features were making the difference? That feels like the really practical part.
Exactly, and that's where the next step came in, a statistical technique called multiple regression analysis. They use that to pinpoint the specific visual elements driving the engagement.
Right. So what did that analysis show? What kind of image features actually matter for getting likes and shares on a university Facebook post?
Okay, this is fascinating. The regression found 15 specific visual features that were significant predictors of engagement across the 3 countries studied.
15 key features. Okay.
And this is crucial how much they mattered, and even whether they were positive or negative, sometimes varied by country.
Okay. So not a universal formula. Give us some examples. What features are we talking about?
All right, let's take joy. So, images showing people with clearly joyful expressions.
Like smiling students, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. That tended to predict higher engagement in Australia and the UK.
Okay.
But interestingly, in the US data, it actually predicted slightly lower engagement.
Really? Why do you think that is?
Well, the thesis suggests it could be down to maybe subtle cultural differences. Perhaps US university branding leans more towards aspirational or serious academic imagery rather than overt joyfulness. It's speculative, but interesting.
That is really interesting. What about something basic like image quality? Surely blurry photos are bad everywhere.
You'd hope so. And yes, the data confirmed that. Features related to blurred images were negative predictors across all 3 countries.
Okay, that makes universal sense. Clarity matters.
Definitely. No surprises there.
Any other surprising differences?
Headwear was an interesting one. People wearing hats, caps, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Positive predictor in Australia and the US, but negative in the UK.
Negative in the UK. Strange. Any theories?
Again, hard to say for sure. Could be linked to specific university branding styles, maybe different cultural views on formality, or even just fashion trends. Who knows?
I mean, logos. You see logos plastered everywhere sometimes.
Another split. Logos tended to be a negative predictor in Australia and the US, but positive in the UK.
Opposite effect again. Maybe a stronger emphasis on overt branding is more accepted or even preferred in the UK context.
Possibly. Or maybe US and Australian audiences find it a bit too corporate, less authentic. It really suggests you need to know your audience.
Absolutely. What about the more arty side? Composition, color.
Right. Composition, how the elements in the photo are arranged, that actually had a generally negative impact across all countries in this study.
Negative. You mean good composition was bad? That sounds counterintuitive.
It might mean that images flagged as having complex or perhaps overly designed compositions didn't perform as well as simpler, more direct shots. Or perhaps the way composition was automatically flagged wasn't picking up what humans perceive as good composition. It certainly highlights that visual structure matters, though maybe simplicity wins on Facebook.
Okay, something to think about there. Any others that stood out?
Yes. A feature called Special Moment Think Graduations, specific events, was significantly positive, but mainly in Australia. Suggests maybe a strong resonance with community or local events there.
Right, tapping into that shared experience.
Exactly. Color seemed particularly important in the US analysis, maybe tying back to that idea of brand aesthetics being key there. And the UK showed a preference for images in portrait orientation.
Like phone screens, maybe?
Could be related to mobile viewing habits, yeah.
So definitely not one size fits all.
Not at all. But there were some universals, too. Features like clean images suggesting clarity, lack of clutter were valued across the board.
Makes sense.
And also images tagged as simply looks great, which is subjective, of course, but suggests overall visual appeal is always a plus.
Naturally.
Oh, and one more surprise. Detecting surprise on someone's face showed potential for positive engagement in the UK and US. Maybe it sparks curiosity.
Intriguing. So pulling all this together, what are the practical implications for university social media teams? What should they do with this knowledge?
I think the biggest takeaway is the potential to shift towards being much more data-informed in creating visual content. It's not just guesswork anymore.
Right. Use the data.
Use the data. These findings give concrete clues about what visual elements might resonate better with your specific audience, especially considering location.
So less about what the marketing department likes the look of and more about what actually gets a reaction from, say, potential students in the UK versus alumni in Australia.
Precisely that. It strongly suggests tailoring your visual strategy based on audience location, while also remembering those universals like please, no blurry photos.
Oh, yeah. Basic stuff still counts.
And beyond just picking images, there's the potential to actually use these kinds of machine learning models predictively. Test an image before you post it to estimate its potential engagement.
Wow, okay. That could really optimize things. But like all research, there must be limitations here, right?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It's crucial to remember this study focused on high-ranking universities. The results might not perfectly mirror what happens at, say, smaller colleges or specialist institutions.
Good point. Context matters.
Definitely. And of course, social media is, well, it's constantly changing. Facebook tweaks its algorithm. User tastes evolve. So these findings are a snapshot, a really valuable one, but things will need ongoing analysis.
It's not a static picture.
Not at all. And finally, this research was heavily focused on the visuals. Future work could dig into the text that goes with the image, different narrative styles, maybe blending marketing theory more deeply with the machine learning side. Lots more to explore.
Okay. So wrapping this up, what's the #1 insight for you, the learner listening today?
I'd say the core message is this. Data analysis, especially using machine learning on visual content, can give universities incredibly powerful tools to genuinely improve their Facebook engagement. It helps move the needle from intuition to evidence-based strategy.
It's been really illuminating seeing how data science is making inroads into what feels like such a creative space.
It really is. And, it makes you think. Maybe a final thought for you, the learner. How could these ideas apply elsewhere? If you work in any field that relies on visual communication marketing, design, media, anything really, could analyzing visual features this way help you understand what connects with your audience?
Applying it beyond university.
Yeah, beyond HEIs. Think about the visuals you encounter daily. What makes you stop scrolling? What makes you react? It's definitely food for thought in our very visual world. This deep dive really has just scratched the surface.
Oh.